everybody, welcome back to Guys on Sports. We've got 3 people on the show today. We've got Phil, we've got Mark, we've got myself. You read the title of the video. We are going to be covering 6 wide receivers that did not finish in the top 12 last season that will be in the top 12 this season. We've got 2 each. It's a great show for you. We have no TikTok take, but continue to engage with us online at GON Podcast, wherever you currently browse the internet. Not only that, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Definitely let us know if our takes are on track with what you were thinking. Ask us what you want to hear from the show. Let us know what we should talk about next week. All the stuff. We love to hear from you at G1 Podcast or on this video if you're watching on YouTube. And without further ado, Phil, the floor is yours. Who's your first wide receiver that did not finish in the top 12 that will this year?
Real quick, before you pick, right? Before you get all high and mighty on us, we are aware that none of us are selecting Justin Jefferson.
Yes, thank you for this.
Justin Jefferson finished outside the top 12 because he obviously did not play the entire season. You extrapolate those numbers across the season, he is firmly within the top 12.
Yes.
So we are taking Justin Jefferson aside, knowing that he should be a guarantee for the top 12.
All righty. So I want to say that with my picks, and I think for all our picks, these are guys that could, if everything breaks right, break into that top 12. Because I think we do see some changeover season to season in those, wide receiver 1 rankings. But generally, there's the usual suspects, and we have a few breakouts here and there. So I don't know that all these guys will get there, but I think the potential is there for these guys. And I feel like with some of them, their ADP allows you to kind of take a little bit of a risk and maybe get rewarded. So the guy I'm going to point out is Mr. George Pickens. Mr. George Pickens is in a somewhat decent situation with the spot being vacated by Deontay Johnson going to Carolina. He's leaving 87 targets from last season there. George Pickens was the beneficiary last season of Deontay Johnson being sidelined to the tune of he basically put up a wide receiver 13 performance when Deontay Johnson wasn't there. Adjusted, obviously, per game. But I think with Justin Fields in town, Russell Wilson, whoever winds up being the guy there.
Better passer,
better downfield passer. I think the Steelers obviously were willing to let Deontay Johnson go because they want to see, or I think they have some belief here in Pickens and what he could produce. 80 yards per game last season overall. Across the season, 12.8 yards. And his ADP right now, he's wide receiver 28. So I think even if you were to go ahead and take him maybe a round or 2 earlier than he's going, I think he's going to outperform that position. And I do think he has the potential to land in that top 12. Only thing really holding me back, because I think we've seen the flash of talent from him, is a little bit of the scheme that they're going to be employing there. Yeah. I think it's just going to be run heavy with Arthur Smith, and that could factor in. But I think he's going to be the focal point. He has the talent, the opportunity is there. At wide receiver 28, I feel comfortable taking him, around wide receiver 20, something like that, and hoping he lands in that top 12. George Pickens.
That's a great pick. I love the fact that every team needs a guy to go to. George Pickens is that guy for Pittsburgh. He was playing with the likes of Circus Hands last year and a couple other duds at the quarterback position. And talk about a guy with immense talent. I'm all over George Pickens this year. I'm getting him at an extreme value. So to hear the validity of the possibility of this dude finishing inside the top 12 has me giddy, because I'm getting this dude later in drafts. I'm getting him in rounds 5, at times 4. 4 to 5 is usually when you see Pickens go. That's great upside for more than likely your wide receiver 3 at that point, especially if you go wide receiver heavy draft.
Yeah, hopefully not Josh Giddey. You're just normal Giddey.
No, definitely just normal Giddey.
Yeah, NBA reference. I do want to add on to the ADP factor from what you were talking about. One, in general, if you can get what is the wide receiver 1 on a team at that echelon of draft spot, like I'm taking that all day, every day. What made me not take this as my pick was the fact that Arthur Smith and who's going to be the focal point. He likes to zig instead of zag whenever it comes to at least fantasy relevance. But no, I think this is electric. I mean, he is the spark on that offense. He's going to, cook's an overused term now, but he's going to cook, I think. I mean,
Russ is going to cook. Yeah. He's going to sous chef.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen there.
He's going to sous chef.
He's going to sous chef. He's going to be Russ's main guy.
So who's your main guy?
We're gonna get right into my main guy. My main guy, I feel like could be a little bit of chalk, but again, we don't know. There's a lot to be said for Garrett Wilson, right? He's played with the likes of Zach Wilson and other bums at the quarterback position, and has finished outside the top 12. When I think that he's personally one of the top 3 best wide receivers in the league, just athleticism, being able to get into any situation to get the ball, whether you're high points, great route runner, all the above. If Aaron Rodgers can come back and be the Aaron Rodgers of old, I like Garrett Wilson's potential here, right? So you're talking about a guy last year that had 95 receptions for 1,042 yards, right? Again, that's with Zach Wilson. That's with whatever other bums they had under center last year, right? 168 targets, right? That tells me that there's 73 targets there that are potentially offline for Garrett Wilson. Sky is the goddamn limit what this guy could do with, even if he hauls in half of those targets, right? With Aaron Rodgers, you're looking at another 35 to 40 catches, probably for another, 400 or 500 yards and a couple more scores. I absolutely love Garrett Wilson finishing as a lock inside the top 12 this year.
Yeah, I think you said it all. I agree with this.
I think, well, what am I going to add to that? It's kind of a no-brainer.
Garrett Wilson is due. Yeah. If a player was due, if a player was ever more due, it's Garrett Wilson.
So I know for a fact, 2 years ago, most uncatchable targets, and I'm willing to bet if he wasn't again last year, he was definitely top 5 in most uncatchable passes.
Yeah. All right, cool. So I'm gonna go with my first guy. A little segue from the Steelers talk that we just had. This is a guy that was nowhere near the top 12 last year that I think has a really good shot of being in the top 12. And we've talked about this guy before. We're very big on Deontay Johnson, just in general as a podcast. A few things that made me pro Deontay Johnson, especially hitting top 12 status. He has the easiest wide receiver strength of schedule this season. Boom. Green there. He was 14th in target share. He was targeted on average 153 times in his last 3 full seasons in Pittsburgh. That is insane. That screams PPR. That screams high floor. Receptions are going to be there. He is the man in Carolina. There's nobody else around him. He's got Xavier Legette, DJ Chark. It's a bunch of who's has-beens and what's its names. Bryce Young safety blanket is Deontay Johnson. I'm equating this to Chris Godwin's prime with now Deontay Johnson's head coach, Dave Canales, who was the OC in Tampa Bay in Chris Godwin's prime. I'm loving this. He had 6th in air yard share at about 41.8%. So ball's in the air. He's catching it. It's a lot of Deontay Johnson. They brought him into town. They traded for the man. I don't see a lot of downside aside from maybe Bryce Young not taking a step, but Dave Canales is going to help with that. That running back room got a little bit better with who they drafted. I just think this is the Deontay Johnson show.
Eating the table for Deontay Johnson this season because I think the value is there.
Oh, huge.
The opportunity is obviously there. They didn't bring him in for no reason, like you said, and he's just been a guy that's been productive, even with marginal to less than marginal quarterback play. I really don't see how you go. I think the floor is definitely there. I think the only question with Deontay is how good can it be?
If you're getting 7 targets a game, 7 catches a game, I'll even say with Deontay Johnson, someone's got to score touchdowns there. It's Chris Godwin. The guy was insane touchdown and reception wise at his peak. This Panthers offense won't be any worse than the Steelers offenses have been with Deontay Johnson on them. I can't see a lot of
and I wasn't posing that as a challenge. I was saying I think you can feel pretty damn comfortable with him. I think the only place to go is up. I think the floor is pretty damn solid. It's like, can Bryce Young look closer to what he looked like in college, and can we get those touchdown numbers from around 5 to 9?
Yeah,
and I think that takes that Deontay Johnson pick and puts him firmly in like the mid to late back end wide receiver 1 tier with the target share he's going to get if he could put up like 8 to 9 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So there's a value there. There's a chance for like something bigger than we're even really talking about.
Workhorse wide receiver is what this screams to me.
For sure. I mean, you mentioned it, that someone's got to catch the ball in Carolina, right? And to have somebody like Adam Thielen, who's a wily vet, who went over 1,000 yards last year with 90-some receptions, to have him on the opposite side as a safety blanket for Bryce Young, I think is going to speak volumes to what Deontay Johnson's in store for. Deontay Johnson was early in his career viewed as like that typical boom-bust wide receiver that turned into a solid wide receiver. When Pittsburgh needed somebody, Deontay Johnson was that somebody. Now you put him in a situation on a team that's going to be playing from behind a lot this year. I mean, sky's the limit for what this dude can produce.
If Adam Thielen could be a top 8 wide receiver for the first 8 weeks of football, then Deontay Johnson can be a top 12 receiver for the entire season.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Cool.
Deontay.
All right, before we get into the last little batch of wide receivers we mentioned, a quick little word from our sponsor, our partner of the show, Chalkboard. If you are not currently in our Chalkboard group chat, you definitely should. It's entirely free, and it's really just a collective database of information. We have a 24/7 group chat that you can ask trade questions, start sit questions, anything in there. Someone is going to answer you. We've got all of our past videos in there for the archive of knowledge that you can just tap into. We've got start sits, we have cheat sheets, we've got pick'ems. It's awesome. It helps out our show, helps out you too. So click the link in the bio, scan the QR code on screen, and join our Chalkboard chat. Cool. All right, Phil.
Okay, so onward we go, and I'm going to talk about a guy that we talked about a bunch last season. We can't sugarcoat it. Last year wasn't what we thought it would be, but I think all of us here could kind of attribute that to a guy we just talked about, Arthur Smith, and the quarterback play in Atlanta. But the guy I'm tapping here is Drake London. Arthur Smith is gone. I think the upside is still there from when he was a rookie. Last season, the Falcons quarterback, they posted the 4th lowest adjusted completion rate, and I think they were 3rd lowest in catchable target rate. So
Stinky.
Now we could parallel this with a guy like why do I always do this? The guy you just picked in the first round,
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson, who's made something out of that kind of quarterback play. Yeah. I'd argue they've had worse in Atlanta.
I'd say that he's probably taken a turd and turned it into a pearl,
as a wise Rocky would say. But yeah, so my thing is everything's changing for London. I think the player that we've seen in his rookie year is still there. Obviously, he's still young. They believe in him. They brought in Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins' history with wide receivers when they get targeted 7 to 8 times a game, or at least 7 times a game. I think in the last 5-6 years, about 75 to 80% of the time, they're averaging 15 points or more. I think it's just a perfect situation for him. I know he hasn't been great with the yak, and I don't think he's ever going to be great with the yak, but I don't think he needs to be because I think he's going to be targeted often. And I'm trying to pull up these stats I had for him, but the only thing with him is, his value is pretty high. I think people are high on him, but I do think it's something that's going to pay off this year, and I do think he'll crack that top 12. I think the talent is there. The situation is finally right. You finally got a competent quarterback, and they're going to, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a guy that's getting targeted 9 times to 10 times a game. I think that should be the workload because he's a big body type that's, you're not just throwing to him when he's open. You're throwing to him when he has a one-on-one. You're throwing to him when he has leverage. Contested. You're throwing to him when you're in the goal line. Him and Kyle Pitts, kind of your twin towers to kind of spread the field, which can mean great things for Bijan. But yeah, give me Drake London all day. I'm on the hype train. I think things turn around, and I actually think he does crack the top 12 this year, as opposed to I think my first pick, kind of has the potential to, I think he gets there.
Yeah, I think from a volume standpoint, you're absolutely right. Kirk Cousins loves to throw the ball. He's going to be looking Drake London's way often. My only concern with London is the red zone targets, because I think they are going to utilize Pitts a lot better in this offensive scheme. And, you have dynamic Bijan Robinson that's just that dual threat out of the backfield that, will get a lot of those gadgety type plays around the goal line. With that being said, Drake London does high point. He's a great physical receiver. And on top of getting the volume, he could end up being, the goal line go-to guy, especially if they trend early in the season to go to him and he does not fail, they're going to continue to go to him in the red zone. And, that bodes well for him. I think he has a great shot at cracking the top 12. I'm currently doing a draft as we speak, and he just went 10th overall in this draft.
That's with some big brain fantasy individuals too.
That shows, that just shows what his ceiling looks like this year.
So I think that could work really quick. I think that could work two ways though, with the Pitts and him dynamic. They're going to go to Pitts, but I also think with Pitts in the middle of that field, I think you're going to get your one-on-one opportunities in the red zone with London. With Pitts occupying the middle of the field, you got Bijan occupying space there as well. I think you do set up for some one-on-one opportunities. The only other thing I'll say is that Atlanta over the last two seasons averaged around 25 passing touchdowns season. Kirk Cousins has been averaging about 31. Last year before he got injured, he was trending towards plus 32. So, what that looks like for a guy like London in his rookie year, which is where I'm projecting him, 4 touchdowns, if we could bump that up by 3, more consistent target share and just the ball in the air more, I think that's what takes you out of, it's just that little bit. 3 more touchdowns, 4 more touchdowns, 20 more grabs.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
That's all you need. So we had last year, Rocky lock in Drake London as a top 12 wide receiver.
Yeah.
And now history's repeating itself, but Phil's locking in Drake
I'm
London.
locking him in.
You're locking in Drake London as a top 12 wide receiver?
I think he's a top 12 wide receiver this year.
All right, book it.
I like it. So far, we've highlighted nothing but dudes that have better quarterback situations this year. So I think we're looking at a little bit of a shift in drafting strategy here, because there are guys, very talented guys now, that are going to much better situations. With that being said, I will take a guy whose situation remains the same in the quarterback that he has in Geno Smith, who's shown to be a very capable quarterback. But now I think DK Metcalf has solidified himself as a legitimate number 1 receiver in this league. And I think the top 12 is not outside. Let me pull up some stats here. Not outside the realm of possibility for this guy. You're looking at a guy that was targeted 119 times. Again, a little bit on the lower end of target share. He was out-targeted by Tyler Lockett and out-receptioned by Tyler Lockett. But what Tyler Lockett did not do was put up nearly 17 yards per reception. DK Metcalf is a strong, explosive athlete that gets down the field. He wins contested balls. And if you put this ball anywhere near this dude, he is going after it with a vengeance. I think that if we can up his targets, which I think they will this year, if he gets somewhere up in the 150, 160 range, puts over 100 receptions on the board, you're looking at a guy that could legitimately put 1,700 yards on the board too.
Whoa.
And they're big numbers, but if you extrapolate, 66 catches for 1,100 yards, it's 17 yard average. If he keeps that kind of consistency with 40 more receptions, they're big numbers. And he had 8 touchdowns last year too through the air. I think he can hit double-digit touchdowns this year as well. And I love the fact that a lot of people are sleeping on him, and he is sliding wide receiver heavy drafts. He's in the 2nd to 3rd round, and non-wide receiver heavy drafts, he's going even a little bit later than that. So I think you're going to get a great value on DK Metcalf, and the top 12 upside of him is phenomenal.
I feel like DK does usually get slept on every year.
Every year.
One year it was because Geno was the quarterback, and then I feel like it's always something. So typically you can get DK at a nice price. My wide receiver was a guy that I spent some money on this wide receiver last year, trading for them in my leagues with contracts. Calvin Ridley was my darling of the offseason last year. Talked up a lot of Calvin Ridley game. And I'm kind of back a little bit with a vengeance and saying that Calvin Ridley will finish as a top 12 wide receiver this year for a few different reasons. The rust is off. The rust is off. That's the biggest thing. It took a year. It's going to be a lot better. We really forget about like the time that athletes take off when they're either suspended or with injury. It does affect it a lot. He was the wide receiver 17 last season, which kind of blew my mind when I was looking back at stats for this episode, because he was really close to cracking the top 12, even with all those duds he had, like the 1-point performance games, the 0-point, the 6-point. That stuff's going to even out this upcoming season. He has the third easiest wide receiver schedule. He had a 23% target share, and I think that continues even with moving over to another team, because there isn't a lot of, Tyler Boyd, DeAndre Hopkins, that's an old wide receiver room. I think Calvin Ridley is getting paid to be that number one guy. He led the league in end zone targets last year, which crazy stat for Calvin Ridley. He didn't catch a lot of those because I think there was just getting acclimated back to playing. But if he led the league in targets last year in the end zone, he's going to be damn near the top again with Tennessee. It's going to be a complementary offense around him. Brian Callahan comes from Cincinnati. It's going to be a passing offense with Will Levis having a deep ball. Not just the fact that this could happen.
Deep stroke too.
Hey, yo.
Wow.
That's crazy. The ADP steal on this is something that I wanted to mention because he's the wide receiver 35 right now, 74th overall. If anything that I'm saying tracks, getting a guy that's the wide receiver 35 that can maybe not even be wide receiver 12 with what I'm predicting, but anywhere close to it. If he can finish as a wide receiver 17 again, you're getting a steal. People are low on him because of the wishy-washy performances that he had. I traded him away mid-season because I couldn't deal with it. But I think it's a different story this year.
What's crazy to me is after you had said that, I was like, there's no goddamn way he finished that high, because he seemed to be quite pedestrian last year.
You don't think about it until you look at the stats.
Sneaky, 136 targets.
Mm-hmm.
Now only 76 receptions, right? So that's 60 targets that were misthrown by his shitty quarterback Trevor Lawrence, who they just ponied up and paid for some unknown reason. But
we gotta get a Mark hates Trevor Lawrence meme on this TV.
He put up 1,000 yards on 76 receptions, 13.5 yard average, and 8 quiet ass touchdowns. They're the 8 quiet touchdowns in the goddamn league, quite honestly.
Look back at the tape for Calvin Ridley. So many either was just miscommunications, like Trevor Lawrence throwing a bad ball, or Calvin Ridley turning too late on a route, or just it bouncing out of his hand. To lead the league in end zone targets, to be the wide receiver 17, to have 0 to 6 point performance games, to have those 38 performance point games. I just think the formula is on the wall, and it's just going to be put together in Tennessee with Tyler Boyd not taking too much, DeAndre Hopkins potentially, Will Levis second year, just Brian Callahan being the leading man on that offense. I'm liking it.
Yeah, I like it too. The only thing I would be scared of is Will Levis. Will he, no pun intended, will he be better, right? Will he be more consistent? Besides that, though,
yeah, he was getting better at the end of the season as far as completion rate goes, and just getting used to it.
I'm a Will Levis fan, so don't get me wrong, but it's the only thing that worries me. If he had trouble producing with Trevor Lawrence, who is, no $55 million man, if you ask me, will he be better with Will Levis?
Yeah.
So, but besides that, I think for the value, it's definitely worth, putting that chip on the table and seeing if it turns into, Calvin Ridley before the gambling.
And from a vibes perspective, no one's talking about Calvin Ridley like they were last year.
Right.
It's Tennessee. No one's really talking about Tennessee, which I think bodes well for that regime. So just a little food for thought.
And I've watched a lot of tape on Will Levis, and if he can perform on the football field like he does on the tape that I'm watching,
hey yo,
what is going on?
Hottest quarterback draft.
Mark's
taking Will Levis.
It was a good.
Is there a sex tape out that I don't know about?
Oh, you have, yeah, you've seen it. Don't
note to
Have you really not?
Why are you so shocked by that?
Wow, dude, because it was like a big thing. The model that he was
Was it a
dating,
big
that
thing?
they're
No, he's
they're broken
gaslighting
up.
you. This isn't true.
Yeah, he's definitely gaslighting. He's seen it.
I
No,
have
you were
no
gaslighting.
idea.
This isn't real.
No, now you're gaslighting.
What?
Now
What the
I don't
fuck's
know
going
who's
on?
gaslighting.
What's going
I have
on?
no idea what's going on.
You're
Hey,
gaslighting.
I also
You're
don't care
gaslighting.
about
All right.
this sex
no, I
tape.
don't know what you're talking about.
Okay,
I swear.
you should
I
Google that.
need to.
You should Google that.
Hey, little editor's note for when I watch this episode back. Make a meme of Mark hating Stampede, who is Trevor Lawrence, and then now a Rocky-esque Jimmy Garoppolo thing with Mark and Will. So
I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
you sound impressed.
Will Levis delivers the mayo. That's
gonna
all
be
I
like
gotta say.
Mark-
Oh, come
Mark-
on, man.
Mark with like his hand in like a jar of mayo, and it's like Will Levis something on it. I don't. Okay, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so close us out.
Oh, that's the show. Look at
That
that.
is the show.
Yeah,
That's the
hey,
show.
thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Guys on Sports. Go back and watch what we talked about last week. Tune into what we talked about next week. Comment below. Let us know if our takes are, thumbs up, thumbs down, in the middle. We'd love to hear from you. Follow us at G1 Podcast wherever you currently browse the internet. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.